Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. It said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. And they'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. It said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said in a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election.
Señores, lo que vimos en California es la fotografía exacta de un gobierno que solo quiere gobernar a través del miedo. Donald Trump y sus aliados no solo están robando poder político a plena luz del día, sino que ahora utilizan a las fuerzas federales como una herramienta de intimidación, y eso que va directamente en contra de aquellos que se atreven a desafiarlo. Lo que pasó fuera de la conferencia del gobernador californiano Gavin Newsom es la prueba más clara de que esto no se trata de seguridad, mucho peor de ley y de orden. Se trata de control, se trata de represión. Mientras Gavin Newsom anunciaba su plan de California para redibujar los mapas electorales, una respuesta directa al descarado golpe de poder de Trump y de los republicanos. Agentes de ICE aparecieron de la nada en una zona donde no tenían absolutamente nada que hacer. No existía operativo, no existía justificación. ¿Qué buscaban? Exactamente lo que Trump siempre busca: enviar un mensaje de intimidación política. Vean esto.
Now we're here making Los Angeles a safer place since we won't have politicians. We do that ourselves. So that's what we're here to do.
Esto es lo que en cualquier manual de ciencia política se define como autoritarismo en estado puro y duro. No es coincidencia que este tipo de demostraciones de fuerza, ¿no?, ocurran justo cuando un líder opositor, en este caso un líder demócrata, está exponiendo sus planes. No es seguridad, señores, no es prevención. Es teatro político con uniforme y con armas. Y el objetivo, lógicamente, es que todos vean quién es el que manda. Aquí hay algo muy importante. Si alguien conoce estas tácticas, sin duda es Gavin Newsom. No es la primera vez que en California, en especial en Los Ángeles, se convierte en un escenario de puestas en escena del trumpismo.
Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. It said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. And they'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. It said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said in a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on. You know what Donald Trump knows. He's going to lose the midterms. He knows de facto his presidency ends in 17 months when Speaker Jeffries is back in office. He knows it. Why else? Why else would you try to rig the system? Why else would you make the phone call? He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE same time having a conversation like this? Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history. An economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse on voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights. He wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. That's what this is all about. It's about power.
¿No les parece curioso que el partido que durante décadas juró que la segunda enmienda era algo esencial para evitar un gobierno tiránico, sea el mismo que hoy aplaude que ese mismo gobierno invada ciudades, que intimide ciudadanos, que despliegue agentes armados sin motivo? Los mismos que decían temer a los dictadores, ahora son los dictadores. Y aquí hay una pregunta incómoda. ¿Cuántos de estos republicanos, defensores de Trump, llegarían a tolerar este tipo de abuso de poder si, por ejemplo, lo hubiera hecho Joe Biden o lo hubiera hecho Barack Obama? ¿Acaso saldrían a aplaudir si es que enviaran tropas a ciudades con altos índices de criminalidad en estados republicanos? Claramente no. Esto, señores, no tiene nada que ver con bajar la criminalidad. Porque si fuera así, empezarían por las ciudades que realmente sí tienen las tasas más altas. Pero no. La elección de los lugares no es técnica, es política. Donald Trump quiere proyectar fuerza, quiere tapar lo evidente, que su presidencia es un cementerio de promesas incumplidas. Los precios suben, la economía está prácticamente estancada, la inflación golpea a diario, la reforma sanitaria, señores, se abandonó por completo. El tema de los archivos de Epstein siguen ocultos. Y Estados Unidos, en teoría, se está aislando de todo el mundo. Y mientras tanto, ¿qué hace Trump? Se construye un salón de baile de 200 millones. Abre un nuevo campo de golf. Y aumenta su fortuna personal en miles de millones de dólares.
How is it that we can't stop our own citizens from killing each other? A river of blood runs through this, the national parks and all the rest.
Geraldo, it was such a pressing issue that Donald Trump found it necessary to first figure out how to put up a flagpole on the White House grounds, to lay the plans for a $200 million ballroom, to host a bunch of crypto dinners, to release a cell phone plan and a crypto coin. All of those things were more pressing than the crime that was apparently so out of control in D.C. that we needed federal troops to be stationed there. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we have higher per capita crime rates, violent crime rates in cities like Little Rock, St. Louis, Memphis, Cleveland, Toledo. But of course, these are all red states, and so Donald Trump won't deploy the military.
Señores, lo que vimos en California, que fue a Gavin Newsom declarando prácticamente la guerra política contra Trump, es un ensayo de lo que Trump quiere normalizar, que no va a dejar que los demócratas o que cualquier opositor logre pronunciarse. Utilizar la fuerza del Estado para silenciar opositores y de paso para distraer a la gente de sus fracasos. No es seguridad, señores, es un espectáculo para ocultar su debilidad. Y si no se frena esto, en este momento, señores, la próxima vez no será solo fuera de una conferencia de prensa de algún opositor. Va a ser en cada ciudad que se atreva a desafiarlo. Ahora bien, amigos, ¿se imaginan ustedes despertar simplemente cualquier día y descubrir que tu presidente ha decidido tomar el control total y directo de la policía de tu ciudad y que además planee extender ese poder mucho más allá de lo que permite la ley? Eso es exactamente lo que está sucediendo en Washington, D.C. con Donald Trump. Y créanme, amigos, que no es tan simple como lo parece, ¿no? O como la gente lo está diciendo. Como bien sabemos, y si no lo saben, Trump ha iniciado un control temporal de 30 días sobre la policía de la capital. Pero ya anunció que quiere extenderlo indefinidamente. Incluso, ojo, coqueteando e insinuando que podría replicarlo en otras ciudades. La excusa es simple: combatir el crimen. Pero las cifras oficiales muestran que el delito ha caído, que no ha subido. O sea, aquí hay algo mucho más grave que la seguridad pública. Aquí hablamos de una jugada política muy calculada para poner a los demócratas en contra de la pared.
But we want to get to the other big story out of our nation's capital. We are less than 1 week into President Trump's 30-day takeover of the Washington, D.C. police, and President Trump is already saying he intends to extend federal control of the force.
We're going to be asking for extensions on that, long-term extensions, because you can't have 30 days. 30 days that's by the time you do it. We're going to have this in good shape. We're going to do this very quickly, but we're going to want extensions. I don't want to call national emergency. If I have to, I will.
To continue control of the D.C. police past the 30 days legally allowed, the president would need congressional approval. Yesterday, Trump said he was confident the Republican majority Congress would give him just that.
Well, if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress, but we expect to be to Congress before Congress very quickly. We think the Republicans will do it almost unanimously. So we're going to need a crime bill that we're going to be putting in, and it's going to pertain initially to D.C. We're going to use it as a very positive example.
The president also hinting there at the possibility of extending his takeover of the local police force to other major cities. Meanwhile, the newly federalized law enforcement in Washington, D.C. began operations in the city yesterday. Tensions were high as local and federal officers, some uniformed, some plainclothes, were stationed at various checkpoints downtown, like this one. A large group of demonstrators soon gathered nearby with signs warning motorists of what is to come. Officers stopped cars as they approached the checkpoint and flagged some for additional checks. Witnesses say this car was towed away after the driver was removed from the car and arrested. The 800 National Guard troops that were deployed to the city by President Trump were not seen at the checkpoint. A White House official told NBC News yesterday the deployment of National Guard troops would be significantly higher throughout the week, and the operation would expand from evening shifts to working around the clock. So, Joe, not everybody is embracing this. This is dividing Democrats in some ways in terms of the response, but also, as you can see, the residents of Washington, D.C. not feeling completely comfortable with this, some of them.
Well, some people don't like it, and there was, of course, the Subway sandwich assault heard around the world. Someone threw a Subway sandwich at a police officer. It's sort of a Lexington shot heard around the world, except in sandwich terms. So, Susan Page, you've lived in D.C. for a very long time. I know people suggest sometimes I overstate the insecurity that D.C. residents have felt over the past 30, 40 years. It's far different than Manhattan. And now let me just say it again. In Manhattan, most people there feel very comfortable at night walking 30, 40, 50 blocks. That's never really been the case in Washington. That's not to say it's a hellscape. But certainly, I would guess there are some Washington residents, and I've talked to some Democrats and members of the press, who are taking a wait-and-see approach. If this is done peacefully, if it's done without more in partnership with the D.C. police, they'll be fine. If not, of course, they'll be fighting that bill as it goes through Congress. What have you heard?
You know, I think this is one more example of President Trump's skill at taking issue in which there is broad public agreement, like illegal immigration ought to be stopped at the southern border, or the sentiment that men should not participate in women's sports, and now standing against crime. There are very few politicians who want to stand up for crime. Now, so it sets a kind of trap for Democrats because they can say, if Trump says, I'm going to make the capital city safe, everybody's for that. And if Democrats say, well, look, it's on a 30-year, it's at a 30-year low last year, it's declined even more this year. This is not the national emergency it portrays it as being. Seems as though they are not taking a tough stance on crime. So I think this has been very tricky for Democrats. And as one result, you see some Democrats, including the leadership of the city, protesting that this federalized takeover of law enforcement in Washington is a bad thing and inappropriate and unnecessary. A lot of Democrats are just going to wait and see because they're concerned about getting kind of caught in a political trap that the president has set for them.
Yeah, and it does seem, John Lemire, that D.C., even though the president was talking about other cities, D.C. is a one-off. D.C. is obviously the nation's capital, and Congress certainly has a say over what happens there, as does the president in consultation with Congress. But, you know, this is something I will say that Democrats and Republicans have been asking for 30, 35 years about, you know, the nation's capital, why Congress doesn't take a more active role in especially safety and security issues. But in this case, of course, getting the funds to D.C. that D.C. needs. Of course, it was slashed this past year. So they need to get the funds there. But I want to circle back to what Susan said, and that is this seems like a trap set up for Democrats. Again, I know there are other people watching the show that don't live in D.C. and don't hear from me. I'm telling you, I have received a lot of texts from Democrats that worked on Democratic campaigns who have never voted for a Republican before that says if he doesn't overreach, a big if, but if he doesn't overreach, if he does this in partnership with the D.C. police force, then they will see that as a positive thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really split verdict here. As Susan and others have said, there are some who think this is good. Others say, you know, it's worrisome. They don't want to see President Trump, meddle with local affairs there in Washington. You're right to say that D.C. is a little different. It is the nation's capital. Also, because it's the federal city, the president and Congress have a lot more authority there than they would somewhere else. But you're right to suggest this could be a trap. It's akin to, of course, what we saw in Los Angeles a few months ago when the National Guard was deployed there. National Guard basically just stood around for a couple of weeks, didn't really do anything, but it angered a lot of local residents. It angered the city's mayor, the state's governor, saying, look, this is unnecessary. This is a dangerous overreach. So, Dave Weigel, let's talk about that for a moment. And Joe is right to underscore that Republicans in Congress cut $1 billion or so of funding that could have gone to the district, that could have been used for all sorts of things to improve quality of life, including public safety. But if the president yesterday, it was striking to have him sort of brashly say, look, we're going to go New York, Chicago, L.A., list the cities. That, I think, is something Democrats who might be leery of making too big of an issue of D.C. because of all the reasons we've discussed. But if he does try to push this somewhere else, then that, I think, turns this into a political opportunity for them.
It could, and this happened in the first Trump administration. The FBI was plussing up law enforcement operations in big cities. The difference at that time was a mass protest movement that would meet these extensions of force in those cities and a political backlash to Trump. And he's a very canny understanding of how things have changed, especially in D.C. So Mayor Bowser has been clashing for years with a more progressive council that has passed criminal justice reforms that she disagreed with or she watered down. And she, in the days since this began, has said in press conferences, community meeting, that yes, the city needs more police. That is not the message of progressives. It's not the message of Democrats in Congress even. They do say they fund policing, they fund law enforcement grants, Republicans want to cut them. They have some messaging here, but the administration has moved into this gap between Democrats who believe that a lot of their party went too far in the post-Ferguson, post-George Floyd area and decriminalizing fare evasion or trying more or raising the age, I should say, for a young person to be detained. And they have a mayor in D.C. who can't endorse Trump. That'd be suicide. But she does agree with parts of this. So how does that move from city to city? How would Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago confront Trump on this? I think quite differently. How would Mayor Zohran Mamdani confront this? I think very differently. But D.C. is a perfect test case for them because they know they have a mayor who agrees with some of the premises, not the takeover, but the premise that there needs to be some correction of what liberals have done.
Well, and this is a trap for good reasons. I mean, you know, the answer to this problem for Democrats is not, oh, everything's okay. There's nothing to see here. Move along, move along. Oh, Washington has dropped 24% or whatever in crime. Well, let me give you some other numbers. The Washington Post took a poll in late April, early May. 91% of Washington residents say crime is a problem. 91%. 51%, it is an extremely serious problem. And John Heilman, we've had people before put this in racial terms. And this is, I must say, this is one thing that I think Democrats have gotten so wrong about crime. So wrong about crime. Let me just read the Washington Post here. There are stark divides among lines of race and income in the poll, with black residents and lower income residents significantly more worried about crime than white residents and those with higher incomes. As they were last year, black women are among the most concerned, with 65% saying crime is a very or extremely serious issue, compared with 82% who said the same thing last year. That's what the mayor understands. Dave was saying the mayor understands this is a problem. That's what the mayor understands. I mean, those are huge numbers. And it is black residents of Washington, D.C., and those who are struggling economically who see it as the most serious problem. This reminds me so much of during the Defund the Police campaign that a lot of people from gentrified areas of New York were talking about. There were, the New York Times reported it, there were a lot of representatives that represented majority black districts in some of the most dangerous areas in New York City. And those representatives were saying, no, don't defund the police. Give us more police for our streets, more police for our businesses, more police for our schools, more police that would allow our children to walk from our homes or our apartments to their schools without being beaten up or attacked by drug dealers.
Ok, señores, en resumen es un manual clásico trumpista. Tomar un problema real, exagerarlo hasta el límite y presentarse como el único capaz de resolverlo. El crimen en DC no estaba fuera de control, pero al pintarlo como una emergencia nacional, él está justificando un movimiento que concentra un poder único en sus manos. O sea, le permite aparecer como el hombre fuerte, el superhéroe de DC, que actúa cuando otros supuestamente no lo hacen. Pero aquí está la trampa para los demócratas. Escuchen bien esto. Si los demócratas se oponen, corren el riesgo de ser retratados como débiles ante el crimen. Si callan o se muestran tibios, permiten que Trump avance con un modelo que fácilmente podría exportar a otras ciudades. Así, tipo utilizándolo como seguridad de caballo de Troya, para poder intervenir en gobiernos locales demócratas. Además, tenemos que entender el contexto legal, el contexto político. Washington, D.C. no es un estado, señores, y el presidente pues tiene más autoridad allí que cualquier otra ciudad. O sea, esto convierte a la capital en el laboratorio perfecto. Puede probar hasta dónde puede llegar con una intervención federal, sin que le estalle un rechazo masivo. Pero aquí entra otro elemento que es clave, y es la opinión pública, porque hay encuestas ya actualizadas, recientes, donde el 91% de los residentes en DC considera que el crimen es un problema y el 51% lo ve como algo extremadamente serio. Pero aquí viene el dato, señores, atención. Las comunidades más preocupadas no son las más ricas, o bueno, como muchos dicen, las más blancas, sino los residentes de color, los de bajos ingresos, especialmente mujeres. O sea que Trump lo sabe y lo utiliza. Se presenta como alguien que escucha a quienes más sienten este impacto en la seguridad. Los demócratas, por su parte, pues podemos ver, no todos, pero hay muchos que se encuentran divididos. Hay quienes reconocen que hay que reforzar la seguridad, al igual que quienes temen que aceptar esta narrativa termine pues legitimando un exceso de poder presidencial. Pero amigos, ignorar la preocupación real de la gente es algo muy grave, es un error, uno que ha costado muy caro antes. Entonces, lo que Trump está haciendo en DC, señores, como pueden ver, no es solo una medida de seguridad, es un movimiento político, algo con doble filo, porque si funciona sin abusos, podría reforzar su imagen como el garante del orden y dejar a los demócratas a la defensiva. Pero si se excede, podría abrir la puerta a que lo acusen de autoritarismo, de abuso de poder. Ahora bien, ¿qué opinan ustedes, amigos? ¿Creen que este tipo de control federal es algo necesario en este tipo de casos de inseguridad? ¿O creen que es un paso muy peligroso hacia un gobierno autoritarista? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.